Welcome to this episode of Three Questions. I'm Greg Michlig, President and CEO at CUInsight.com, and it's great to be joined by Julie Ann Wessinger, National Vice President of Consulting at Allied Solutions. Julie Ann, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Greg. Great to be here today, and I'm excited to meet the audience. Our culture consulting team with Allied, we work with credit unions to create high-performing teams in tandem with our partner Integrity Solutions. And although the goals vary by organization, overall we typically focus on developing an employee and member-centric culture that helps organizations meet their goals and bring their mission alive. I'm excited to say that currently we work with 7 of the top 10 credit unions in the United States based on asset size, along with about another 300. So happy to be here and to share a little bit of our insights today.
That sounds fantastic. Happy to have you here with us and looking forward to hearing those valuable insights on culture and accountability. So let's jump into those 3 questions. So, how can an organization move accountability from a stated expectation to an everyday practice?
Yeah, first of all, I think accountability, the word itself, has a bit of a branding problem. For a lot of leaders, the word accountability immediately sounds negative. We associate it with difficult conversations, missed goals, correcting performance. So it becomes something we address only when there's a problem. Gallup's most recent 2026 leadership research actually reinforced that out of the 7 core leadership competencies, creating accountability ranked last. Only 30% of managers said that their managers were excellent at holding people accountable. And when you think about credit unions, there can be another layer of discomfort. And that's because accountability often gets connected to sales metrics. And we all know about that 4-letter word sell, right? So I think that's where we need to change the branding. Accountability isn't about pushing products or simply hitting a number. It's about being clear on the behaviors we expect. Understanding the member, asking good questions, identifying needs, recommending solutions that genuinely improve that member's financial life. And ultimately, that accountability begins at the top. If the executive team isn't aligned on what a great member experience looks like and what leaders are expected to coach, we can't expect consistency, across the organization. So moving accountability, Greg, from a stated expectation to an everyday practice really comes down to 3 things in my mind: clear expectations, consistent coaching, and leaders modeling those same behaviors they expect from everyone else.
Those are 3 solid points and really helpful for people when they're thinking about how to reframe, accountability. When you say hold people accountable, that I think that's where that negative connotation can come into play a lot of times. So how does lack of accountability affect enterprise alignment? And what must leaders do to create a consistent approach to member service and communication across the organization?
Yeah, I think an accountability gap very quickly becomes an alignment gap. And when leaders aren't held accountable for communicating and coaching consistently, people naturally begin to interpret expectations differently. One branch does it one way, another branch does it another way. Maybe the contact center has a completely different approach. So that creates confusion for the employees and ultimately an inconsistent experience for the member as well. In organizations, we often assume that we're aligned because we've communicated it, right? But clarity only exists when the message is consistently reinforced, modeled, and understood across every level of the organization. Well, that's harder than it sounds sometimes, right? That's where leadership alignment becomes so important. Before we ask frontline employees to communicate consistently, our leaders have to agree on what do we want them to communicate. What exactly does great member service look like? What questions should we be asking? What do we mean by relationship development? We want them to create strong loyalty, right? What does that mean exactly? And how do we talk about solutions in a way that feels consistent with the credit union's mission? Clarity is essential in this process. And clarity can't just live in a training program. It can't be just delivered from an email from senior leaders. It has to show up again consistently and intentionally, be that team meetings, coaching conversations, and recognition programs. Sometimes there's confusing messages, right? We're being offered X amount for this, and yet we're being asked to sell with integrity. How do we do that? Um, think about the member experience. Whether I walk into branch A, the contact center, even calling behind the scenes, if you will, with a question, I shouldn't experience three different credit unions. I should be able to have similar language, philosophy, expectations, personalized to the member, of course, right? But it should feel like XYZ credit union. It should feel like my credit union. I know I'm there. So I'd say enterprise alignment really requires leaders to first align with one another, communicate a common set of expectations, and then hold themselves accountable for communicating and reinforcing those expectations. That's where it gets hairy sometimes.
Yeah, you mentioned a few things there, the accountability gap and how coaching can help. And you talked about clarity, and it takes me at the America's Credit Unions GAC, Brene Brown was there. And I know a lot of us have read the book where she talks about clear as kind, right? So clarity is
Yes.
really important. So I hear you when you're talking about that. Yeah, on the coaching piece of it, what does effective coaching actually look like, and how can meaningful one-on-one conversations help close the accountability gap that you spoke of?
You bet. And hey, thanks for mentioning Brene Brown. She is one of my favorites because going into a coaching conversation, right? It always makes it easier as a coach if you think of that in your mind. Clear as kind, right? Because those are the kind of topics that are difficult for all of us to coach when it comes down to having that hard conversation. I think we have to clarify sometimes for organizations what exactly coaching is. Coaching isn't correcting. It isn't simply checking the box and I had my meeting this month or this week or whatever it is, or reviewing numbers every time. It really should be an ongoing conversation that uniquely helps each individual based on where they are, where they need to be, and where they're going. And I really can't emphasize that piece enough because one of the things we see quite often is people always say we're coaching. Yes, we're coaching all the time. But what are we talking about, right? Are we picking a topic and we're coaching everybody on that topic this month? Maybe everybody didn't need that topic. That's why a one-on-one is so important. It creates a regular place to be heard, to collaborate, and to develop. And probably just as importantly, you're delivering the message to that employee is you're important to the organization. And with today's generations, that's more important than ever. They want to have meaning behind what they do, where they work, and they want to feel that inclusion, if you will. Two things we see consistently in our culture consulting work related to coaching are, and this first one's going to be hard to hear, is it's often assumed that certain levels in the organization no longer need coaching. So unfortunately, most senior teams in that situation are not modeling a process because, hey, I've been here 30 years, 50 years, I should know how to coach by now. Or we assume that person who works for us has been here 30 years, they should know how to coach by now. But coaching's always changing, right? The people coming to work for us are changing. So that's number one. Number two is supervisors are expected to be coaches and manage all the things we're giving them today. And yet, one of the great things about credit unions is we tend to hire a lot from within. But when have we stopped to say, have we prepared these supervisors for what we're asking them to do today? And so a lot of people haven't been trained to have a confident, quality one on one conversation. So they're doing the best they can. And so that in itself, if you think about it, starts to create that accountability gap, is because we're uncomfortable, we're not confident, and our managers modeling for us how we should be doing it. And so effective coaching, as I said, needs to be individual and it needs to be one on one. And a quick reminder here, I like to always tell people in our coaching sessions when we're helping them is morning huddles are not coaching sessions. They don't take the place of a one-on-one coaching session. And that's because there's certain personalities, right? Certain styles that will never speak up in a group setting. So if we're counting on having our coaching sessions for the whole group, that's a little bit of a misnomer or a misstep, if you will. So the other thing I think of is managers, when they're coaching, also need to be clear and learn how to understand, am I coaching to a skill issue, meaning I don't know how, or a will issue, means I know how, but I'm not doing it. Those are going to require very different coaching conversations. And that's where what you said earlier, that's where Brene Brown comes in, right? We have to know how to be clear and handle those conversations. So ultimately, meaningful one-on-one conversations, if you will, close the accountability gap because there should be no surprises. Expectations are clear, feedback is timely, commitments are made, and the next conversation follows up on those commitments. That's when coaching becomes part of the culture and not something we do only when time allows or performance goes wrong.
Thank you for sharing all of this. Thank you, Julianne, for joining me. It's been a pleasure to connect with you, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Appreciate it, Greg.
Yeah, appreciate you being here. And I want to say thank you also to all who tuned in for this 3 questions video interview. We'll see you next time.